The higher mind, the Holy Spirit as the Course would call it, or the higher self as most people would call it, really only looks at what unifies.
Mm-hmm.
It's all it's interested in. And when you fall in love with somebody, and now we are speaking specifically romantic paradigm, you love somebody, the separation falls away. Even if it's only for 5 minutes that attraction kicks in, the ego is then what cuts that off.
Okay.
So if both people are committed to say, look, let's take this out of where it's going, stay where we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on what unifies us. Like, for instance, we're both enjoying ourselves together.
Which is important, extremely.
Let's hope. Let's focus on the innocence in one another. Let's make an agreement to not take each other's personal views personally. Like, I have a problem when someone says to me, I love you, I'm so sorry you're going to hell.
According to you, yes.
In which case I have a cabana by the fire lake. Sounds fabulous. There's no healthy response to that other than, wow, I'm sorry you feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And be honest. I mean, I laugh it off with a joke, as I just did cabana by the fire lake. But I think even that conversation, if you want a relationship to work, you have to shelve that for a while. I mean, I've had men really be interested in me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really, as a matter of fact, I'm beginning to tiptoe back into a dating relationship with someone who 10 years ago I had this exact experience with. Roman Catholic from Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So not raised in the American paradigm, which is different.
Very different.
It's very different.
Very different.
And really strong attraction. He's a Taurus. I'm a Virgo. It's a very strong physical attraction. And the physical part was great. But once we started talking about spirituality, and he knew, I'm very upfront with that. It's pretty much first date material, because I don't feel like springing that surprise on people. Oh, by the way.
Excuse me.
And it's not
I'm
even
a pagan.
It's not even that I am a witch. Some people call me the witch. Like, I'm the witch of Sayville or the witch of Bayshore. I've got a coven now. I think we've got like upwards of 80 people in our coven nationwide, and I'm a minister. I don't need to surprise that. To me, that's sabotorial. And why would I want to hide that? Now, granted, it's not the first thing out of my mouth. Yeah, it's certainly not, hi, I'm pagan. My name is Mark.
Yes, nice to meet you.
You know, like, I know people who are like that. You know, big pentacle tattooed on their forehead. People do the same thing with their sexuality. Hi, I'm gay. My name is Mark. To me, it's not about that.
Well, there's
in
no
the first
confusion.
stages. Anyway, well,
there's no confusion with
but
that.
certainly it's a first date discussion.
Right. So
You know, like,
people are
let's
aware,
get this out of the way, because then if you're going to run and hide, go right ahead. Now, what this guy actually did, and we actually talked about this 2 nights ago, he apologized. And he said, if I had known more about your religion at the time, I wouldn't have run. But he ran at the time.
Right.
And I said, well, I understand that. I said, you're not the first one to do that. You're certainly not the last one to do that. He said, why didn't you recommend to me a good book? Like, I don't have 8 billion books I could have recommended to him. And I said, well, because that wasn't why I was there. I wasn't in the relationship necessarily to be your teacher.
That's not where you wanted to be either.
It wasn't what the relationship. It wasn't like you came in for a talk or a workshop or a class, you know. So my response to him still in this moment would be, well, if you want, sure. I mean, I've got the books. You don't even have to go buy them. Here, read this, read this, read this, read this. But does that? It really became the center focal point of our relationship, which, by the way, was a lesson for me. And this is a weird word to use, in prostitution. No, not in prostitution in terms of selling my body to him, but would I compromise and negotiate my truth to make him comfortable so I would be comfortable so that we could have a relationship? And I couldn't. I couldn't do it.
But you were talking about not wanting to be his teacher, but yet when respect comes to the table and people are discussing, then the teaching has to automatically come to the table as well to see if something can progress.
I really believe that we teach by example anyway. It's just, what are you teaching? Are you teaching from the knowledge of the higher self, which is saying that we're all one and we're all God's children?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the verbiage is different in paganism. We're called the hidden children of the gods. It's plural. But even I think all pagans acknowledge that all gods are one god, all goddesses one goddess, and in truth, God and goddess are one. But that conversation then can really be about we are teaching by example and learning from each other in this experience. In other words, I don't have to sit someone down and lecture to them about my religion. Just spend some time with me. You'll pick up on it.
But some people are, and I hate to use the word obtuse, but some of us have no, but we become.
I'd use that word.
We become so focused on what you see before you that you don't pick up the awareness that's around you. And it happens all the time. I came over the Ocean Parkway today and I went, I finally get it. You can't see the forest for the trees. I see the tree. I see the forest all the time. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't pick up on the individual tree as I'm looking at the trees as I'm driving by. Mm-hmm. Sometimes what's right in front of you, you don't see because your focus is different. Yeah. And it's important, I think, in a relationship, sometimes to nudge that focus and to see if there is that openness within that focus so that enlightenment can take place.
And I think that if you're watching a podcast like this or listening to it, depending on which medium you're doing, you're working on your spiritual path most likely. So I really also then have to give a second answer to this question, but to the pagan involved, because chances are the born-again Christian's not going to be listening to this. It's a huge assumption, but chances are, though I wear a silly grin, sorry, little Johnny Mathis snuck in there, what I would say to my sister Linda, mm-hmm. soul sister, not literal, is that use this opportunity to learn about forgiveness and essentially beat him at his own game. Because if you're not taking his fear personally, he'll get that. He'll see that. But if you put up your dukes and if you fight and defend your religion, you don't have a shot in this relationship.
But then you're not comfortable in your own religion anyway.
Right. So you have to be really clear. Harm none is the whole of the law for the witch, and I'm not hurting anybody. And if you can't accept and believe that, and if you really think I'm a baby eater, why are we having dinner? Why are you here?
Are you experiencing your dark side? Is that what you think you're delving into?
Maybe, but again, I think it comes down to the witch has to learn how to forgive. Otherwise, you will repeat that lesson over and over and over and over and over again, which is something, how interesting, I've had to do over and over and over and over. It's taught me that holy war scenario has played out for me so many times in romantic relationships that it taught me, first of all, I cannot compromise myself and stay healthy. Mm-hmm. Not in that way. Second, it taught me how to forgive, because all that is when somebody is really confronting and challenging you, essentially calling you evil, it's their fear projected. And I'm sorry, you can't pull projection out of a relationship. Any relationship. You can't. I mean, I have to say, from even our last two presidents, the current one and mm-hmm. Obama and Bush previous, it's a real shift in projection for me, because on Bush I projected a lot of negativity, which was all about me.
Which produces more negativity.
Right. And now I'm just projecting onto Barack Obama, but it's mostly positive stuff, which some people would say is not projection. It's extension. That's, of course, in Miracles difference. But still, everything is a mirror in this world.
Right.
Now, I don't know that that's a second date conversation. I don't know if that's a third date conversation. But I think if you're going to try and do something long-term with somebody, you have to have that under your belt, and saying that if they're afraid of me, where am I afraid of me?